Hi everyone, thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the channel. It's free, but it really helps. Thank you. I really appreciate it. So the question on the table is, how worried is this guy and about what exactly? First thing we have to consider in the astrological cycles is that right now, pretty much into December, Jupiter is approaching a station at 25 degrees Cancer. This puts it in contact with his natal Venus. And so aside from inclining him to engage in more and more illegal actions or borderline illegal and all forms of criminality, which is what the 12th house is, it does promote confidence, and from that perspective would allay worry or offset it to a certain extent. It's also the fact that Saturn is trining into that, and that helps in one sense, but in the other becomes part of the problem, inclining more toward worry because of where it is in a house that is difficult always, the 8th house, and the fact that it's close enough to a square to his sun to manifest in that way. And squares to the sun are the kinds of things, the kinds of aspects in astrology that will definitely correlate with worry. And a lot of that is nothing other than his health issues. And even if the Jupiter is helping him to feel better in some way, it's going to be true unless he's completely delusional, which we know to some extent he is. But when it comes to your own body and getting signals and getting told things that are important, usually your attention will perk up and your delusional veils will tend to drop at least somewhat, meaning if you know that your ankles are swelling, if you know that you're having trouble walking, if you know that you're having all kinds of, hand colorings, and then on top of all that, what he calls perfect advanced imaging, which means he's been doing MRIs, which typically are not ordered unless something concerning is going on. All of that, in addition to not just an annual visit, but more regular visits, one gets suspicious that something is up. And so all of that will certainly be connected to his worry. But that's not the topic I'm getting at here. The topic I'm getting at here is quite different. And to explain that, I first focus on genuine political worries that we know he is grappling with, namely, top of the list would be the Epstein files, which he has tried desperately to avoid releasing, and I'm sure has multiple people working full-time to do whatever they can to protect him from the near certainty that he's all over these files, all over these records in a self-incriminating way. But for that, he will do things to distract. We've seen this multiple times already, and indeed, maybe he would do those things anyway, but he certainly will in his feral, reptilian brain realize, well, I can do this, I want to do it anyway, and it'll distract people because they'll be focused on the fact that I'm ripping the White House apart, or threatening to send the military into multiple cities, imposing tariffs on countries because I don't like an ad that someone posted. I mean, all these things are fabulous distractions to keep the media steadily focused on those instead of the pressure of for example, the Epstein files. But what's the real gist here? And for that, I would turn to something he did a while back when he tweeted truth, what he does when he stays up at night and types into that device. He was literally, well, you could say, strongly suggesting / ordering, demanding that the Justice Department pursue and charge his enemies, the people that he's upset about due to their actions in prior years, going all the way back to 2016, hence Jim Comey, John Bolton. He wants Adam Schiff charged, Letitia James, all of that. And we've seen some of those consequences, which would be that a number of prosecutors had to resign because they didn't want to do it. Other prosecutors were fired, literally, and he waits until he finds any prosecutor that'll do it, which of course ultimately will lead to these cases failing because there's not enough evidence, which is why the other prosecutors didn't want to take them up. And we'll be back to something similar to the Durham report back in the day. Of course, in a way, he may also not care about that because once again, it's in the news. He focuses on the fact that people overall focus on the, let's say in this case, with the MAGA movement, white nationalism is enough for them. So then even if things go nowhere, big deal, they're not going to make so much hay out of that, right? But here's the thing. Recently, he then started tweeting about the 2026 election. And once again, strongly suggesting, borderline ordering the Justice Department, Pam Bondi, Todd Blanche, the whole apparatus, to start getting involved in the 2026 election by way of preventing mail-in voting, demanding strict voter ID. Also, there should only be paper ballots on election night and no early voting. All kinds of demands on this level. And of course, he runs up against the fact that a lot of states, including Republican, will resist that because they have in the past and they're liable to do it again. States by nature will want to keep their own power. Here's a case where even though it is the United States, it's supposed to be, right now they're pretty disunited, and this might be one benefit in that less federalism is favorable. Otherwise, he would just change it himself, and then it would be a huge problem. So in this case, he has to go state by state, maybe attacking the voter rolls, trying to chip away in different ways. And so this is obviously very dangerous, there's no question. He's saying it publicly, in open view. And the question is, can he accomplish it? And I should add, before I explain why or why not, I should add that if he could just magically or in some other way, some secret way, just rig the vote, fix it, he probably would. I mean, that's just logic. It seems a little preposterous to think, well, no, he's got this magical solution, but he's going to do this other thing as well to make people think that that's really how he's going to do it. I mean, it gets kind of complicated. My feeling is that he's doing it this way because it's the only way that he can do it, and he wouldn't be doing it unless he were worried about the results of the 2026 election. And we know that he constantly tells us his numbers, his polls, everybody loves him. He's in the 70s. There has never been a president this successful in the history of the country, and for good reason. That's what he says. Of course, reality says something else. We know that he's in the 30s. We know there are all kinds of problems, economic problems, upcoming health premium problems, all kinds of problems. As we know, for example, this really aggressive approach with ICE and with the military, lots and lots of Republicans are very uncomfortable as well. He's not in a good place, and he has reason for sure to worry about 2026. So then we come to the main point. Can he do it? This is where my contention is, the way the situation is, assuming he gets through his pretty extreme health threat that takes him into the late winter of 2026, like meaning February, maybe March at the latest. That whole zone is very, very dangerous because of multiple planets, but most especially Uranus. If you want to review this, or if you haven't seen it yet, watch the video where I talk about Trump is in for a big shock. That's essentially that Uranus cycle. But the real problem here, the real astrological problem, is the Saturn cycle, because what's going to happen is as it goes into Aries in 2026, and this is by February, but it starts to gather momentum as we go towards spring, locks into his infamous Access Hollywood T-square, which is the place, I can tell you for a fact, he least likes, and because it correlates with difficult situations where you get denied. That's what Saturn does when it's in the building, in quotes, pressuring you. Worst of all is that it goes to a peak point in July when it makes a station, which is a little past those degrees, but with the degrees still in play because Saturn is due to return. Then it moves its way down, and at election time, it's precisely square his Mercury, which being a Gemini is particularly important. The fact that that Mercury is in the 12th sign and is being squared by a planet that comes from the 12th sign at birth means that the answer to the question in terms of his worry, yes, I think he's incredibly worried about this. And as far as election success, the answer is a big fat no.